What is up, tankers? It's October, which means the monster tanks are awakening. There is a huge roster of monster tanks in the game, so we're going to review all of the ones that I own in order of their release, meaning today we start with the LYCAN T71. The LYCAN is a very special tank. It may just seem like a skinned tech tree light tank, and for the most part it is, but the slight advantages this tank gets is what makes it so special, because not only is it better in ways than the tech tree tank, but this is one of the only tanks to get anti-preferential matchmaking. Meaning, unlike regular preferential matchmaking tanks that give the tanks a +1 -2 matchmaker, this tank actually has +2 -0 matchmaking, meaning it can never be top tier in a match. Which may sound like a deterrent to some, but for those that know the power of light tanks, even in bottom tier matchups, this is very beneficial. And it was for me, as this is a tank that was gifted to me, and I made a rule to 3-mark gifted tanks, and I succeeded in this one quite easily because of that guaranteed bottom tier matchup. It allowed for more damage potential every game. But of course, if you're not that fond of light tanks, hearing that this thing can't be top tier can definitely be a turnoff. Just wanted to mention this aspect of the tank up front. For those who are thinking about getting this one, you must be aware of the anti-pref matchmaking. Now, what does this tank do better than a Tech Tree Tier 7 light you can get for free and that can be top tier? Well, let's start with the gun. It's a 76mm autoloader that does 150 alpha damage with a 6-round clip. With a 2-second intro clip, it dumps that clip in 10 seconds for a clip potential of 900, which isn't insane, but it is pretty good. With a reload of 20 seconds, the DPM value is 1800, which is pretty average for Tier 7 light tanks. It has standard APDS rounds with 175mm of penetration and 1219 shell speed, and premium heat rounds with 210mm of penetration and sub 1000 shell speed at 975. I really wouldn't recommend the HE in this thing, to be honest. Other notable gun statistics are its 0.39 base accuracy and 2.1 seconds base aim time, which is annoying. It's not as fast as the intro clip, but at least it's close, and it also comes with 7 degrees of gun depression, which leaves a bit to be desired, but at least it's workable. Now, what about the gun is different to that tech tree version? Well, not much, just the standard penetration being 175 instead of the tech tree tank's 145. Yep, it's got the same reloads, aim time, accuracy, the whole shabam. So why the anti-pref if the gun just gets a standard pen increase? Well, this tank came out way before Mercenaries and the British light tanks, which are the only tanks with better standard pen, so it might just be an age thing. But there is one other big difference of note between the two, that being its spotting capabilities, which is a big deal on a light tank, right? The LYCAN has 400 meters base view range to the Tech Tree T71DA's 390 meters base. And it's actually one of the only two Tier 7 light tanks that get 400 meters base view range, the other being the Aufklärungspanzer Panzer Panther. Which again is a big deal, right? You may also make the mistake of thinking it also has better camo than the Tech Tree, but the LYCAN is a skin tank and doesn't need you to equip camo. So that's where the better base camos come from, because it already has that camouflage equipped. Armor-wise, this thing is a light tank, so you get what you expect. Its thickest part is the upper plate at 25mm, and since you won't face low tiers, that means the armor is quite null and void. So despite the Tech Tree having the same armor, the armor of the Tech Tree tank might come into play against the lower calibers it can face with its matchmaking. So I guess you can say the Tech Tree has a slight edge in that regard, but I really wouldn't consider that at all. And other than that, they also share the same 840 hit point pool. And those would have been the only differences, and those differences are in the LYCAN's favor. But with this season update, they buffed the T71DA's horsepower and the stock gun, but that doesn't matter here. And with that horsepower, previously they had the exact same traverse speeds, power to weight ratios, terrain resistances, even top and reverse speeds, with the LYCAN having 64.4 top speed, while the Tech Tree had just a flat 64, which is not really that big deal of a difference. But now the horsepower is in the Tech Tree tank's favor. They used to both have 420 horsepower, but now the Tech Tree T71 has 470, which increases its horsepower per ton, making it more maneuverable and getting to that top speed quicker, climbing hills better, and anything else that horsepower would benefit you. This shouldn't be that big of a deal, as with 420 horsepower, the tank has already an above 26 power to weight ratio, which is very, very good. But this is obviously a win for the tech tree in this case. So after all that being said, is this tank worth it? Well, it really depends on the type of player. Yes, the differences are minimal between a tank that's free to earn, and with those minimal changes, it comes at the prospective cost or benefit of anti-pref matchmaking. So if you're a player that likes light tanking and again knows the power of a light tank even in a bottom tier matchup, this tank can serve you well. And it served me well, and I personally did enjoy the guaranteed high tier games to help mark the tank. But of course, if you're not into light tanking or you're decently good at it but like being top tier from time to time in your matches, well, this is an obvious pass. There's no doubt the tank is good, but usually I can recommend any good tank to everybody. But it's really that anti-pref matchmaking that is the deciding factor for this one, and you just have to make that one up yourself. That's of course not all we have to talk about, as we get to experience it in a whole nother mode, where we don't have to worry about similar tanks or anti-pref matchmaking. The Awaken mode. So what does this puppy do in there? When you have ammunition in your clip, you have boosted benefits to your speed, handling, rate of fire, accuracy, and you even gain immunity to fall damage, which is beneficial in the Halloween maps. You can cliff dive off the Proc Hill, or even from the top of the castle down the slide on Himmelsdorf. But once you've unloaded that clip and start the reload process, you lose all those benefits. So, a bit of a pro tip, when unloading into an enemy, leave just one ammo in your clip to allow you to escape, and then manually reload in cover. That way you don't lose your speed benefits and get caught out, since I do remember it will be quite slow in comparison. Another neat feature of the tank is that the pen holes in the enemy tank that you cause are actually claw marks, because this is supposed to be some sort of werewolf if you couldn't tell. So, if you're interested in its Awaken mode abilities and you like its standard battle statistics and uniqueness, this tank may be a pickup for you. If not, don't worry, there's plenty more to choose from. Now, I do have some gameplay for you guys, but since the Awaken mode is not out yet, I don't have any of the Awaken gameplay for you. That I will do in a stream here on YouTube on Halloween, showcasing all the tanks we will review this month, so look forward to that, and the VOD will be, of course, saved as well. Before we get into the gameplay, this is my setup. I have optics, a camo net, and vents. Of course, as an autoloader, you can't get a gun rammer. Gun laying drive is not necessary with the aim time being so close to the intro clip. And if you play more aggressively and don't feel the need for the camo net, you can opt for vertical stabilizers. But this is what I ran with. I have my usual consumable loadout, of course. You can use a premium medkit if you're not penny pinching like me. And I kept only 2 clips of heat in the back pocket, as the standard felt like enough for the most part. But I would recommend loading more clips of heat, maybe 3 or even 4. As for my commander, my usual light tank skills are Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Camouflage Expertise, Born Leader, Steady Aim, Rapid Loading, Snapshot, Run and Gun, and Designated Target. Now let's hop into that gameplay. And here we are on LYCAN. Now, this is one of my favorite maps in the game, to be honest with you. And you may think like, you're in a light tank. Well, first, before I get into that, I'm showing you the leaderboard here because I don't actually show the scoreboard at the end. Partially because I probably didn't think this would be the game for me to show. But this is the best game that I got in the time that I allotted for myself because I had a lot of tanks to get through. So here's the best one. Again, you see I already have the 3 marks. So you know I'm capable in this tank. You know I know what this tank is worth. But anyway. On LLMean, since it's one of those sand maps, you might think it's not that great for light tanks, because you don't have many bushes to play in, but also think that that's something I can take advantage of, that the enemy doesn't have that many bushes to sit in, so I can spot them even better. But LLMean's ranges and playable spaces is just one of my favorite maps in the game for really any class. I feel like the worst class on this map is the heavy tank class. That's partially because people really don't fight for the north as much as they used to in their heavy tanks. And you either get overrun by being left alone or yada yada. That's not important to the conversation. What is important is we're going to try and rush out over here, and I wanted to spot where I'm looking at right now. But we got hit by some dudes who went middle, so we're going to sit on this ridge. Hope that someone shoots these guys, but I guess we'll shoot them. And you see the way I had to angle myself to be able to get my gun depression down. Now, even though low tier HPs got buffed, these tier 6s, well, with 900 clip potential and a fire, I'm able to take out that Sherman, the Sherman Jumbo, sorry, with one clip, leftover a round for the STA-2 to put into him because I set the Jumbo on fire, allowing me to save that round. And then this STA-1, sorry, did I call it a 2? I don't know, is now just pushing in. And I'm just going to fire randomly, hope one goes in and one does. Try and aim that one, doesn't go through, but I just want to get my distance, reload, let that guy die, aim XM4. The heavy's in the back. Got rid of him, so now I can go back and play forward again. But this thing does move pretty quickly. You see that I get to my top speeds quite smoothly and quite quickly. So that tech tree horsepower buff is going to benefit it only slightly, only marginally, honestly. I still think this is obviously the better tank. Obviously, with 10 more meters view range as a light tank, that's very, very important. But I mean, again, I can't recommend it to everybody if you don't like the anti-pref aspect of the tank. Then you might as well just go for that tech tree tank. And I said that the stock gun buff didn't matter, that that happened with the seasonal update, but that's another thing you can look or you can use instead, because it has better DPM, but it's lower alpha. And they just got a buff to its reload, so you can choose that if you want on the free tier 7 stock tech tree tank. But enough rambling about the tech tree tank. This is a premium tank review, right? But it's just that comparison has to be made, right? And you have to understand that there's a lot of Halloween tanks to choose from, and for this one specifically, you're choosing it for that anti-pref. Which sounds odd, because you would choose a pref tank for its pref, but why would you choose an anti-pref for its pref? Well, like I said, you can't be top tier, sorry. You can't be top tier. And in a light tank, to me personally, it helps. Being top tier in a light tank just means, well, easy game, right? Or not that much damage potential. If I was seeing tier 5s in this thing, even though they buffed HP of tier 5, so like you still get a lot of damage potential, it's just not as much as getting into tier 8 and 9 games. But anyway, this match is going on, and we're just going to play in the middle now that we have sort of control over the south. Try and get some shots into that medium tank, but he's not giving me any more. It's 9-7. I've done a bit of spotting, but my team wasn't really in positions to shoot anything that was out in the open, and not really much was out in the open. So I'm mainly relying on my damage here now. And we're already at 1900. Yeah, we had 1000 at the beginning of the game, but look at this. An Oho, ready for pickings. But firstly, I got to deal with the wheelie tank. Now, 1200 base shell speed on the APDS rounds is very good, and allows me to hit some shots here that I otherwise wouldn't have. With the stock gun of the tech tree tank, I believe has the same or even worse shell speeds than the heat rounds. Somewhere around 700 and 900, if I remember correctly. But with 900 clip potential, even though it may not feel like you're doing much with 150 damage a shot, you have 6 in the mag, so you're able to do things. And 210 millimeters of heat pen's not going to be enough to go through this guy, but I'm going to try anyway. You know, try to go for that little cupola maybe, or just get some spotting, right? Finally do some spotting, because we have something capable here if my team is able to pen. Now, I'm trying to track him here, but I could have shot his side turret if I was paying attention. But I just want to keep him tracked, because right now I'm not trying to mark. And in marking, you do not share, or it does not count. And we actually got a pen on its cupola with 210 heat. There you go. You don't share, or your spotting and your tracking don't count towards your mark. Only your highest does. Many people might not know that, but that's the case. But since we're just trying to go for a base XP game here, since we're already through mark, I said, Well, I have a light tank behind me, and, well, if I'm gonna share, I might as well track, and I'll get full anyway. So we did get a bit of tracking. Actually, we didn't. We have 0 tracking, hit markers, even though I'm pretty sure he took damage while tracked. Anyway, we're up to 2,000 spotting. The game's not over, though. We are half our HP, and there are 2 tanks huddling together. So what do? Well, I go at him. I mean, I got 900 clip potential. I load the heat, or I load back to my APDS because I realized I didn't need the heat. Although I might have liked to have it still. Didn't think the fatherland was poking up. But see, this sadly the other light tank's over on the other hill, so I didn't really get much spotting. Now, it didn't really feel like I did much this game, but that's what happens when you spot and you get 2,000 spotting damage, right? And then when you have an autoloader and you're able to do 900 damage in a clip, putting out multiple clips, right? Putting out, well, 2 clips or 3 clips doesn't really feel like much. But I did 3,000 damage. So, like, it was a lot. I still feel like I didn't really do much this game, but 1993 base XP, I did 3,000 damage, I did 2,000 spotting, it was an ace tanker. But, I mean, that's just the LYCAN, right? It doesn't feel, or you don't have to do much to get a lot, and because of that, it doesn't feel like much. But that is a substantial amount. Again, remember, it's a tier 7 light tank as well, so. But enough downplaying my own gameplay. That was an ace tanker for you. And like I said, I didn't show the scoreboard, so I showed the leaderboard at the beginning to show that there was no bots. And that is the power of the LYCAN for you. If this tank doesn't interest you that much, don't worry. There are plenty more Awakened Mode tanks to go through. Some of which even have preferential matchmaking, which is the opposite of Anti-Pref, right? And so might seem more beneficial to you. But thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the future reviews, and take care.